Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Diane McDowell joining us here again, the founder and CEO of Powerful Questions Coaching. She joins us again here from Westfield, Indiana, unless she's on vacation today, which I should have asked. Diane, how are you and where are you?
I am actually in Indiana still, so no
All right.
vacation currently.
Good. I don't want to make any assumptions, but we're happy to have you back here also on the Zoomcast as well. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about our brain and relationships today. We'll get to that. First and foremost, I would love for you to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm Diane McDowell, and I am a therapist gone coach. I've been doing therapy for 25 plus years. And I've moved into the coaching realm, and I work with high performing women who are struggling in relationships, who are feeling like stuck or unappreciated. A lot of times, high performing women actually put so much energy into their work life that their relationships suffer.
Got it. And how do we find you?
You can find me at powerfulquestionscoaching.com. You can email me at diane@powerfulquestionscoaching.com, or you can text or call at 785-4A-COACH. Again, that's 785-4A-COACH.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And also powerfulquestionscoaching.com. And you are currently taking new clients, correct? So
Correct.
You can call,
Yes.
schedule that strategy call. So, all right, let's get to our brain and relationships. So how to stop your brain from sabotaging your relationship. Could you talk about this? It happens a lot.
Yes. So here's the thing is a lot of us aren't taught about our brain. And to me, this isn't even really coaching necessarily. It's just understanding our brain. So one of the things that our brain does is it sabotages us, and specifically in relationships. And I'm going to kind of give some examples of what this looks like. We have some biases, and we'll get to those in a minute. But what often happens is our brain is designed to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient and do the same thing over and over again. So our brain is designed to do the same thing over and over again, and it's designed to seek pleasure. A lot of times in relationships, we need to do what's best for our future relationship, not the current moment. So in the moment, I may feel like yelling at you, but my future self would be like, that's not going to serve me long term. So what often happens in relationships is we get a fear. So our brain, there's something called negativity bias. And our brain is constantly scanning for negative things and magnifying them, making them bigger, and then absorbing them. And this comes from neuroplasticity training, specifically Rick Hansen. That's who I got trained through. But our brain is designed to absorb negative instantly, but it is not positive. So in relationships, you'll start to notice that we focus on the negative. We think about the negative. We magnify and make the negative bigger and more scary. But our brain doesn't do that with positive. With positive, we actually need to focus for 5 to 20 seconds for our brain to absorb it in the same way. So our brain is sabotaging our relationships by focusing on the negative, making it bigger and scarier. And we rehearse that because our brain likes to do the same thing over and over again. We rehearse that in our brain over and over again.
So true. And I want to hear examples of this. I know you're going to share some, but go ahead.
Okay. So let's go on to what do we do with that? When we know our brain tends to sabotage that, what do we do with that? So there's negativity bias, which we just talked about. Then there's something called confirmation bias.
Okay.
And this is really important to understand because our brain looks for evidence to prove ourselves right. So our brain will be like, he's a slob or she's always late. And our brain looks for evidence to prove ourselves right. And when there's evidence that doesn't align with what we believe, we actually kick it out of our brain. And our brain does this. We aren't aware of it. So if somebody's not late that we think will be late, our brain doesn't recognize that because it doesn't align with the confirmation bias we already have. So it's really important to be aware of what are the biases that my brain has already told me that I'm looking for evidence for, and I'm not even aware I'm looking for evidence to prove myself right in my relationship.
Yeah.
So that's the second one. So negativity bias is number one, confirmation bias. The next one is called fundamental attributes error. It's a little bit more complicated, but fundamental attributes error. And what this says is, in me, when I mess up, I see it in me that I was just running late and the traffic was bad. And we kind of make reasons for why I mess up. But when they mess up, no matter who they is, we make it a character flaw. We say they're lazy, they're incapable, and we attack their character. So in fundamental attributes error, we see in ourselves a reason why we did what we did. But in the other person, we see it as a character flaw, and we attack their person themselves, not the behavior. So one of the solutions is actually start to remember to focus on the behavior, not the person.
Yeah. Interesting, because behavior, our patterns. Oh my goodness, we have to talk about this more because it gets a little confusion with our biases and how that can impact things. And by the way, if you are just tuning in, don't forget we're here live with Diane McDowell today, talking about her work as a coach. And guess what? Sometimes our own brain sabotages our own relationships, but she's going to help us work through this. All right, let's continue.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, there's a couple other, and actually I'm going to address one because there's something called the halo effect. And that is very common in high-performing women. High-performing women tend to miss red flags with certain people because we see one thing and we focus on it and we kind of magnify that and we put them up on a pedestal in a way, and then we miss the red flags. So with high-performing women, I just kind of want to point that out because there is a tendency to see one thing and be like, they're great at this or they're awesome at this, and then we miss the other things. So just be aware of that with the halo effect. Okay, so then what do we do with these biases?
Yeah.
Now that we know we have them, how do we work with our brain?
Okay.
And what I want to suggest is the solution is becoming self-aware. We have to start to notice, if we want to change this, we have to notice what we're doing when we're doing it. And our brain tends to freak out in relationships. So one of the things I talked about was our brain is constantly scanning for danger. And what happens is our brain will get scared and say, danger, 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 but there's really no danger. And so what our brain will actually do is it will tell us to kind of attack because we're scared. And so becoming aware and soothing our brain. So we have two main parts of our logic brain. We have the reptile brain, which is our fight, flight, or freeze. And when we get, and John Gottman did the research on this, but we will often go to our reptile brain, which is on our brain stem. That's why I'm pointing back here.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a reason. It's our brain stem. And so we go to fight, flight, or freeze. And so what will happen when we are afraid is our brain's scanning for danger. We get afraid and we go into attack mode. We're afraid of being rejected. And so we start hurting, and so we start trying to cause hurt. So we say really hateful things. So this is where Brene Brown talks about when we're in shame, we don't have any business being around people. So we have to start getting insight, self-insight into our behavior and what triggers us so that we can remove ourselves. So the answer to all these biases is really building our relationship with ourselves and understanding what our triggers are so that we can remove ourselves before we start showing up in ways we're not proud of. And then, yeah, so it's really about getting to know yourself. So here's one of the things that's kind of hard about all this is it's called being the lover and the lovee. And this thing, again, comes from neuroplasticity. But if I am the one loving myself and I am the one receiving the love, it's very difficult because we have much easier time thinking about our children or our pet and being able to love on them. But when we think about ourselves, we don't know how to transfer that love to ourselves. So one of the ways to be the lover of yourself and the lovee, be the one giving it and receiving it, is to actually think about someone or something that you love. Think about how you would talk to them, how you would behave with them, how you would interact with them, and then take that and put it on you.
Okay.
Many of us don't know how to love ourselves. And so this is the start to being able to start to see, like, what does it look like to love someone? What would I say? How would I act? How would I engage? And then turn around and put that on ourselves. So I want
Oh.
to suggest that all these biases really come down to building our relationship with ourselves. And how we build our relationship with ourselves is by learning to be the lover and the lovey of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, the hardest person to love is ourself. And when we can love ourselves and like ourselves, then it's much easier to love and like everybody else,
Yeah.
including our partner.
Yay.
Yes. All right. So would you like me to go on to some stories?
Please. Absolutely. Would love to hear it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce you to someone. I'm making up names because I don't use the real names, but I'm going to call her Hannah. So Hannah came to me and she had been in a relationship for 12 years and she had started turning to drinking to escape the situation at home. And basically what it was is she felt like she wasn't heard. He would monologue at her. He would talk at her for long periods of time. It wasn't a dialogue is a back and forth. A monologue is somebody talking kind of at you, not with you. And at home, she would say, I would just shut down, be quiet, and let him talk at me. And so she started turning to alcohol to cope with not liking her home life. And
Mm-hmm.
so the things that we started doing were setting boundaries. And
Yeah.
if you remember from our previous shows, boundaries are self-action that are always what we will do. So she couldn't tell him, you can't monologue me, because we don't get
Ah.
to control another person. So instead it's like, if you monologue at me, I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to end the conversation. So when she was on the phone, she started having to say, hey, I got to go. Whenever he started monologuing at her, she would say, hey, I got to go. When he would do it when she was home, her boundary that she had set was, I'm going to go to my sister's. So a lot of people will say, but I feel stuck. I feel like I can't do anything. I've been doing this for years. And you can set boundaries, but they have to be self-action. They have to be what you will do, because we cannot tell another person what they can or can't do. We can't control that. So we end up getting really upset if we keep trying to control them and we can't control them.
Mm.
So she had Hannah, who came to me, she had great success with this. It took a while, but the relationship dynamic started changing. He started noticing that she was leaving the conversation every time he started lecturing at her and just talking at her. So he started asking her more questions. So the goal is not to control another person. The goal is to show up in a way that you would be proud. However, the other person will probably change. Relationships are a feedback loop. And when we change, the other person has to change to bring it back into balance. Because when we change, we throw the balance off.
Okay.
So that is Hannah. Do you want me to keep going?
Please. Let's remind everyone first, though, how we can reach out to you.
All right. I'm Diane McDowell. I am a relationships coach. I work with high performers, and you can reach me at Powerful Questions Coaching on LinkedIn. I also have a relationship dashboard. It is a toolkit. It's a one-page sheet to help you start creating the relationships you want. It helps you figure out what thoughts you want to think to create the feelings you want to feel, to take the actions you want to take in your relationship. And it walks you through step by step. So I would suggest getting on powerfulquestionscoaching.com/dashboard, and it will take you to download that one-page sheet.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much for that. Well, let's continue hearing some more stories. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so trying to think, let's go with, I'm sorry, making requests. Okay, one of the best ways to handle things in relationships is making requests.
Okay.
So in my opinion, there are a couple game changer skills we can do.
Okay.
And making requests sets up a relationship that says, I'm requesting this of you, but you get to decide. I'm not trying to control you. And when we make requests, we can come from a place of love. When we
Mm-hmm.
make demands, it sounds like conditional love.
Yeah.
I will love you if you ... That's conditional love. Making a request says, I love you, and I would like it if you could do this, but if you can't, I still love you.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to point out here is loving the person in your life makes you feel better. So if I want to feel better in my life, loving the people in my life makes me feel better.
Yeah.
If I start withdrawing my love from my partner and saying they don't deserve it because they leave their clothes on the floor, and they don't deserve it, my love, because they run late. When I start doing that, I suffer. I feel my own emotions. So what I want to suggest is that whole building the relationship with yourself and showing up in a way you would be proud. It comes back to loving the way, loving them, even if they don't deserve it, because it makes you feel better. So when we love the people in our life, I call it kind of selfish because it makes me feel better to love them.
Yeah.
So why not love people if it makes me feel better? They don't have to deserve our love for us to love them.
Interesting. Can you say that one more time? They don't have to.
They don't have to deserve our love for us to love them.
Oh,
So a lot of times we make love conditional. I'll love you as long as you're faithful. I'll love you as long as you show up in a certain way. But if we just love them, we feel better, and we build our relationship with ourselves, and we build our trust with ourselves. And so what a lot of people will say was, what if they don't deserve my love? What if they hurt me? But they will. We're humans. We're going to be hurt. But if we withdraw love, we get hurt too.
yeah.
So understanding our brain feels better, like we release dopamine hit, we feel better when we think loving thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
No. So we have to start practicing that and self-love too. And okay.
Yes. And so that worksheet that I just told you about, that one-page worksheet, that actually helps walk you through what thoughts do I want to think to create those feelings of feeling love. Now, this is not to say we don't leave our partner at some point if they are not the person we feel good about staying with. But don't create drama to leave. Don't create unloving thoughts to give yourself permission to leave. Because again, loving the people in my life makes me feel better. Our brain releases dopamine. So going back to kind of the whole, the title of Don't Let Your Brain Sabotage Your Relationships. Like, you tell your brain what to think about your relationship. You tell your brain what to think about your partner. You tell your brain what you want to think to create the feeling you want to feel. So, all right. Anything I'm missing on that, I'm wondering?
No, I mean, I just want people to realize that this is something that you are very well versed in. I know just a little bit of your background. I would love for our listeners to find out what brought you into this field and just a little bit about your credentials, because that's important too. They may not know you yet. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in a religious cult, and I had always studied people there. And then when we left at age 14, I studied people. And because I had a learning disability or a learning difference, I spent a lot of time mastering people skills and not mastering book skills. So that really brought me into this. And then I went to college for being a therapist. And then I experienced going to therapy. Me and my husband were building a house, and it was stressful, and we were having some difficulties, and we went to therapy. And I was so frustrated and disappointed when we left our sessions, because I felt like that it could have been more productive and we could have got. So I actually made a commitment to myself that I was going to be the best damn relationships coach / at the time therapist that I could be. So that was it was kind of like my turning point was, I want people to come to treatment or to coaching and really feel like things have changed.
Interesting. And here you are.
Yep. Okay. So do we need to wrap up? I'm not sure what our time.
We still have 3 minutes left. Continue.
Oh,
go ahead,
okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Awesome. So then if you guys are okay with it, I would love to go kind of back to some skills, because I feel like skills are the answer to making change. Insight is the start. So insight gets our brain going, but we need to give it skills. It's kind of like the way I teach things is, I can't take away someone's coping skill until I give them a new one. So I don't want to take away the current things you guys are doing in relationships without giving you new ways of doing them. So what I want to suggest is for the new ways is starting to really I want to say journal, but if you're not a journaler, if you're not a writer, talk to yourself or record on your phone, but really starting to become the watcher of yourself. What we want to do is we want to put the focus on the other person and we want to say, but they should have, and they should. And we want to give them all the rules and take the focus off of ourselves. And the way I describe it is it's like we're wasting brain juice because we don't get to control another person. So what I want to suggest is you start becoming the watcher of you and you start noticing. Now, for me, I picture myself on the right side of me, sitting outside of me, watching me.
Yeah.
And so I notice what changes in my face, what changes in my voice. How do I know when I'm starting to escalate? How do I know when it's time for me to remove myself? How do I know what's going on for me?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk in the next 2 videos about feeling feelings and creating thoughts. So we will get to those because those are big things. So many people don't know how to feel feelings. When I ask clients, they'll be like, yeah, I feel my feelings. But then when I describe it, they're like, oh, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I really we'll get to how to feel feelings, but I really want to suggest this. It starts with becoming aware and then becoming the watcher, starting to really notice what you do, how you show up. And anytime you're focused on them, bring it back to you. That's all we have control over.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. And if we want to reach out to you for initial consultation, could you explain the process, how that works?
Totally can. So you can reach me you can schedule a session at Powerful Questions Coaching /strategy. And then the session, it's a 20-minute free consultation. And basically we're going to look at where are you now in your relationship? Where do you want to be in your relationship? And then we're going to look at how to close that gap and bring you to where you want to be. The way I describe it is it's like we set a GPS coordination that says this is where we want to go. And then we're going to talk about how do we get there? What would that look like?
Thanks so much. And again, to remind us how we can contact you, best form would be website, powerfulquestionscoaching.com. And how else?
Yes. Sorry, my dog's in the background.
I wasn't sure. Thank you.
She's back there shaking away and I'm like, settle down. Okay. So powerfulquestionscoaching.com is my website. And then you can reach me at 785-4A-COACH. And it's just the number 4. So 785, the number 4, and then A-COACH. And you can text or call me at either one of those. I'm also on LinkedIn if somebody would prefer reach out to me there.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. Will do. You have a fantastic day. And again, Diane McDowell, that's DIANEMC, capital DOE. I'm sorry, OWELL. Just want to make sure in case they Google you to find you there on LinkedIn as well.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.